So please continue to eat and enjoy your lunch. As we get started with our meeting, my name is Trudy Williams. Okay, we didn't have Miss Bickley today to play the piano, but I know I was looking forward to that. But I also have to make sure that I thank her before she makes a hasty exit, because usually when she's done playing, she's up and gone. So that will be the first order of business from now on whenever we have her. If you have a cell phone, please put it on silent or vibrate. We don't want it to ring while our presenter is giving his presentation today. But before you do that, make sure you take a selfie. Take a picture of everyone at your table or a picture of yourself with a friend at your table, and then you can check in to Holly Tree Country Club, and you can also check into the Rotary Club of Tyler, and then you can upload it to your favorite social media outlet. And if you don't want to do that for yourself, our public information officer is Bill Croom down here, and he most likely got a picture of you, and that will be posted on social media today. I want to thank our greeters today, Susan Campbell and Peter Vasquez. Woo! Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to welcome up to the podium Rochelle Ewert, and she is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Please stand.
Flag this way. Thank you all for being here today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you all.
Oh, I know I didn't get a hug earlier.
Get my hug.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Dr. Dan Edwards. He's going to lead us in our invocation and our introductions.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's join in a word of prayer together. Father, we're grateful for each person, each family that's represented here today, Lord. We ask your guidance, your direction, your protection on each person and each family. We thank you for the work of our local Tyler Rotary Foundation and for the work of our Rotary International Foundation in so many places. We thank you, Lord, for the food and for every blessing. And we ask, Lord, that you would take this rain and give us a wonderful spring with beautiful flowers. All of this we ask in your perfect name. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. And we'll do introductions. We'll begin with visiting Rotarians. If you're here visiting from another Rotary Club, would you please stand and introduce yourself?
John Hart, South Tyler.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here today. And then we want to recognize guests of Rotarians. I'll start right here at this table to the right of the podium. We're delighted to have with us Bill Brown, who's a former member of our club. He's been out on extended service handling several projects, but he has filed his application to rejoin our club. Look forward to welcoming him. please introduce.
I have, as a guest today, Jake Flowers. He's with Terra Networks. And Jake and I worked together many years ago. And we ran into each other at the State of the City at the new convention center several months ago. And he is a hard worker and he's just a really down-to-earth nice guy. So please get to know him.
Another guest with us today, Billy Hibbs.
Thank you, Deanne. I got myself strapped here with us today. Brenda Johnson always wanted to hear his speech.
Yes.
Wonderful. Other guests of Rotarians.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited today to have with me our fearless leader and my dear friend Michelle Mills of the Better Business Bureau, as well as John Souls and Diana for coming today to talk to us about the amazing things that y'all are doing. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. We're so glad to have you here, Michelle. Madam President.
I'll try to make this too long. This young lady is my dear friend, Maggie Ron. She, her column is about longevity and how water really, really saves everyone's life and has them live longer. She's an entrepreneur as well, and she designed and developed a corporation that purifies water. You could say it better. So it just takes water back to where it should be. Yes. And that location is here in Tyler. Also, she's an internationally known investment trainer. She teaches classes worldwide. She lives to teach people how to invest and how to become millionaires. Anyway, and as well as her entrepreneurial water business, which is called H2Go. And most of all, she's a part of the arts here in Tyler. Many of you have been over already. And she has been a part of the Cowan Center and its programs for many years now. She brought us Ed Costner in 2022 for the 20th anniversary of the Cowan Center. She brought us Greg Morgan just a few months ago, the country singer. And in February, she's bringing Kenny Wayne Shepherd to the Cowan Center. And just like to welcome her, and she is a very much respected member. She was a member, she was a Rotarian in Oregon before she moved here.
Welcome, Maggie.
I'll wait. Oh, we got one more.
We got at least one more.
Oh, okay, two, okay. Who do you have?
I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Pat. She wants to verify where I go on Thursdays for lunch. Pat is the Tyler area coordinator for the Quilt Dollar Foundation. They award handmade quilts to veterans who've been touched by war. She and her volunteers in the last year made and awarded over 100 quilts to East Texas veterans, some of them World War II veterans.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, I got them over here. Okay, you guys are gonna have to raise your hands high.
Okay, this is my guest, Gary House. And Gary works with me at UT Tyler at the John Souls School of Business. So obviously a really good reason for Gary to be here. We're thrilled to have him. So, and he's been involved in Rotary in other locations, right? You just told me that. So.
Correct. Yes, Lisa, thanks so much for having me as your guest. And I have been a fellow Rotarian from other chapters, 2 in Mississippi and one in Huntsville, Texas, several years ago. So thank you very much for having me.
All right, welcome guests. Any more guests to welcome? Okay, we have somebody over here. Yes, no? Oh, yes, Trent's a guest.
Well, I have a mouthful. met, most of you have met Trent.
I'm Trey Goodwin. I am the development director at Camp B, and Susan invited me here to address today. Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, we are so happy to have all of our guests, and so happy that we do have the program that we're having. I myself hope to be a graduate from the John Souls School of in the summertime. I have 3 classes left after this one, so I really appreciate that. I thank you very much. I'm enjoying that master's program so far. I'm looking forward to the day that I'm done. So yes, and I have to say that before we got that program, I don't know that I would have actually done it, because it's very important that I get to do all of that online. Because other than Rotary, I actually do have a job. And then there's these other people that live with me that insist on eating and going to school and all that stuff. So there you have it. Okay, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. And remember, guests, we do have this rule. This especially applies to you if you are a guest that has been here more than once. On your 3rd visit, it is understood that you now need to become a Rotarian, a member of the Rotary Club of Tyler. So next time, if that's going to be your 3rd visit, be awaiting that application. Okay, we didn't get to have, I don't know if we had you last week or not, but it's been some time. So please welcome Paul Gleiser to the podium for this week in history.
Nobody has me anymore. On the 25th of January, 1971, a Los Angeles County jury found Charles Manson and 3 female followers guilty of capital murder in the death of actress Sharon Tate, along with 6 others. They were subsequently sentenced to death. The sentence was commuted to life in prison when California abolished its death penalty. Manson was denied parole 12 times before dying in prison in November 2019. On the 26th of January, 1934, movie mogul Samuel Goldwyn purchased the film rights to L. Frank Baum's children's book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The movie, simply called The Wizard of Oz, debuted on August 11th, 1939 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Reviews were mixed, and the box office was only fair. But in 1958, CBS paid MGM today's equivalent of just under $2 million to air the movie on television. That broadcast became an annual television event and served to finally make the movie an American icon that it is today. On the 27th of January 1967, during a countdown rehearsal for the first manned Apollo spacecraft launch, astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee died when the fire broke out inside the spacecraft sitting atop its Saturn 1B launch vehicle on pad 34 at Cape Canaveral, sealed and pressurized to 16 pounds per square inch with pure oxygen. It marked the first deaths of U.S. astronauts inside a space vehicle and severely threatened the Apollo program goal of putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade. On the 28th of January, 1986, 11 years and 1 day later, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after liftoff from pad 39A at Cape Canaveral. All 7 crew members, including New Hampshire school teacher Krista McAuliffe, died. On the 29th of January, 1936, Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson became the first 4 baseball players inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. On the 30th of January, 1968, this was a pretty big deal. North Vietnamese forces began an all-out assault on South Vietnam, concurrent with the Vietnamese New Year celebration called Tet. 80,000 North Vietnamese troops attacked cities, towns, and military posts in South Vietnam. They breached the wall of the American embassy in Saigon, but failed to take it over. The first wave of the offensive continued until late March. The U.S. lost approximately 3,000 men. Communist forces lost 40,000. It was a success for the U.S. military, but largely because of the negative reporting of Walter Cronkite on the CBS Evening News. Public support for the Vietnam War dropped precipitously following the Tet Offensive. And finally, on Wednesday, the 31st, 1945, Army Private Eddie Slovic was shot to death by an Army firing squad, having been convicted in court-martial of desertion. His last appeal for clemency went to Supreme Commander Dwight Eisenhower, who was weighed down by the enormous losses then being suffered at the Battle of the Bulge. Slovic was the first Army execution since the Civil War. There have been none since. Birthdays in the coming week, starting today. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky turns 46 today. Any MASH fans?
Yes.
Hawkeye Pierce, Alan Alda, turns 88 on Sunday. Oprah Winfrey turns 70 on Monday. Actor Tom Selleck, also on Monday, he turns 79. And finally, well, this last one, Gene Hackman, great actor, turns 94 Tuesday.
Wow.
And that's this week in history.
Okay, some of those birthdays, they always come at you. 94. Okay, just let that soak in. Just let that soak in. Okay, so speaking of the Wizard of Oz, how many of you have seen the movie? Oh, look at that. Okay, so don't blurt it out. Don't do that. I'm going to ask a question. How does the Wicked Witch come to her demise in the end? What is it that kills her? Raise your hand if you know. What is it, Paul?
Dorothy throws a bucket of water on her in order to put out the fire on the scarecrow.
And then what does she say?
Oh, what a world of melting.
Melting. And then the book, why did the water melt her? Because she's made of brown sugar. So how many of you read the book? Okay, did you know it's a book? Okay. Nerd alert. Okay. Moving on to some more Rotary business. We do have a board meeting tomorrow. I'd love to invite everybody that's interested in coming to see how we do business to the board meeting. It's going to be held at Ultra Federal Credit Union. That's right there at the intersection of 155 and the Loop. Wendy's is right across the road. Bodacious Barbecue is there. We begin the meeting promptly at 12. Please bring a lunch if you want to eat. We don't serve any food. Colby, our president-elect, will be running that meeting as my schedule has been completely filled up for tomorrow. I don't know if you all know this, but on Monday, it was an extremely tense and busy day for our medical world, so much so that we had almost 100 and sometimes more than 100 people waiting in our emergency department for admissions. So when those things happen, all the troops come together and they wipe your schedule clean. You look at your day and there's absolutely nothing on there. But then what they do is they take everything that was on Monday and they put it on for Friday. So you're not getting out of it. You just get to do it a little later in the week. But it'll definitely be a good board meeting. And if you're interested in serving on the board, or if you're interested in being on any of our groups of people that really gets a lot of work done, if you're interested in what it might take to be involved in RILA or a youth banquet, the board meeting is a good place to come and get that information. Okay, the multi-district conference is going to be April 26th through the 28th at the Choctaw Resort in Oklahoma. Okay, I'm already registered. We're registered. I think we already have hotel rooms. You really, if you've ever wanted to get with a bunch of Rotarians, learn a lot and have a good time, this conference looks like it's going to be a really, really good one and a great time in Rotary. I'm going to be there. If you don't register, you're going to have FOMO. And what's FOMO?
Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. I don't want you to have fear of missing out. So you can register on their website. You can go to Rotary.org, but there's Rotary District 5830.org, or you can actually call Shirley if doing that is kind of difficult for you. If you have Club Runner, if you already have a profile on Club Runner, you can pull that up. It'll ask you, and then it'll be there. You can register with your profile Club Runner. you don't want to miss out on that district conference, okay? So get registered for that. Keep bringing your grocery sacks every day because we're going to keep collecting them for the East Texas Food Bank's mobile pantry. And then any volunteer hours that you did in December, please make sure you get those over to Holly. We collect those volunteer hours, and as we build them up, those are some of the criteria that at the end of the year that qualify us for our presidential citation. We have to have a certain amount of volunteer hours. We always do. We always meet that, but we don't ever want to run short on volunteer hours. So get those over to her. The program for February 1st. This will be good. Paul Gleiser is going to give us the top 23 cultural icons that we lost in 2023. So that should be really fun. Okay, so here to introduce our speaker today is our wonderful president-elect, Colby McElwee. Colby.
So today we have a native Texan, John Souls Sr. He is the founder and chairman of John Souls Food, which is the leading beef and chicken fajita meat company in the United States. The company has retail presence in more than 17,000 venues across all 50 states. John built this company with his son, John Jr., Mark, as well as a talented team at John Souls Food. John and his wife, Judy, are active members at the Green Acre Baptist Church in Tyler, involved in many higher education and various philanthropic organizations. John loves to spend as much time as he can with his grandchildren outside in the great outdoors of East Texas. If you would, join me in welcoming John Souls Sr.
I've seen him do this on The Voice, but I don't trust myself to sort of think so. Can everyone here in the room okay? Okay. Thanks for that kind introduction, and it's really an honor to be here in front of so many guys and ladies, some of whom I know, some I have known in the past, but getting to see again. About 25 or 30 years ago, there's a guy by the name of Malcolm Beck who came to Tyler and talked about compost and raising earthworms. And it just absolutely captivated my mind, my imagination. For years, that's what I would talk about, but I never had a chance to be involved in it until a few years back, and my sons stepped up in the management of the food company, and that allowed me really the time to get out and get into something that I had wanted to do for a long time. I started taking composting classes about 15 years ago, even though we didn't really start composting until 5 or 6. But it's really the whole idea of recycling is very, very exciting once you begin to learn a little bit about it. And it doesn't really matter what you recycle or you improve, whether it's water, whether it's the soil, whether it's the food we eat, or as Cut Beef has a bunch of really neat on the side of their retail store just west of the mall. And one of the ones that I love, I have them all on my phone, and periodically I go back and reread them for inspiration. But the one that really stuck in my mind the most is, "You are what you eat eats." And that just, it sounds very simplistic, but it's so incredibly profound in the depth of where it takes us. Everyone knows we've got a new medical school coming up. Diana, who is here with me today, Diana actually handles sales and educational aspect of Texas Organic, which is a business on the East Loop where we do composting. And I asked her to be here today because we have some handouts that would have additional information if anyone here wants some of that after this conversation we're having. Composting is really a science, but it's very simple in the science because nature simplified it a long time ago. Mankind, especially here in this country, we really have sort of lost the art of composting because in about 1900, someone discovered that they could compress air and create fertilizer out of the nitrogen that's in the air. And so we transitioned about 1900 from a really agrarian society that understood health of the soil, and we transitioned into a kind of a plug and play agrarian society where you send your soil to a lab, they tell you what to do, you do it, you open a bag, you dump it out. But we really have sort of lost that symbiotic relationship with the soil. And I say symbiotic because it nurtures us, but we have to nurture it as well. The thing I truly believe about composting is that if there was an endeavor that meets the four-way test, it's composting. And especially number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? When you benefit the soil, you benefit the plant. Let me back up. Diana worked for about 2 years to get Texas recognized to have an official state chapter of the U.S. Compost Council. So in January of 22, and unfortunately she was sidelined here in Tyler with COVID, but didn't get to attend and be recognized for all of her efforts. But she just was an absolute Trojan for about 2 years working with the federal organization, the U.S. Compost Council, to get Texas recognized. And I think we were number 14 out of all the 50 states. Since then, that was January of 22, 2 additional states have come on board, and it looks like we have just sort of kick-started an endeavor to get states more involved in composting. A lot of people, I would say most people, don't really understand the difference between mulch and compost, because we have a lot of people who use the terms interchangeably, and they're talking about mulch when they really mean compost, and they're talking about compost when they really mean mulch. By definition, mulch really is downsized organic matter. And we think of it as wood, ground wood. That's what our compost is made from. All of the trees that you see that are being taken down for construction or dying or trimmed or whatever, that's brought to the East Loop location, and we grind it, downsize it, and then we seed it with bacteria, and we allow Mother Nature to break that down into a very usable form of organic matter that since 1900, the organic matter has just been steadily dropping in our soils. It's pretty well documented in research, both university and private, and through the Compost Council. It's been pretty well documented that one of the benefits of composting your soil is that it effectively doubles your annual rainfall. So as we go forward in what looks to be is going to be a continuing environmental drought in the Southwest, that's really important to remember. Instead of paying water to put on your lawn, you can put an organic matter out that holds and retains that water and then releases it back to the plant, and you in effect, you double your rainfall. Or you can decrease somewhat the amount that you have to put out on your yard from the city water system. And I'm sure Don won't be happy to hear that, because the sale of water is a big income source for the city of Tyler. But since 1900, it has just become simpler to open a bag of fertilizer and put it out instead of taking care of the soil, which is what our forefathers did. Forefathers and foremothers. It's kind of as you can tell, I'm very passionate about the whole concept of recycling. I've talked to Don Warren about it, and he said that just infuriates him to be pulling into the city dump and unloading something out of his yard and see a recycle truck pull up back in behind him and dump the recycle out into the landfill. A lot of people don't know, but that's a lot more common practice, not just Tyler, but nationally. That's a lot more common practice than we realize. And those of you, I'm assuming a fairly large number in this room recycle. So you put effort into separation. There's a new company, been in Tyler 6 or 7 years, but they're really just on the cusp of exploding. And that's New Hope Energy. I don't know if anyone's heard of New Hope.
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Okay. Johnny and Karen Combs that came to Tyler 6 or 7 years ago. Johnny was one of 4 national environmental engineers in the Air Force. And his job was to take care of long-term contamination that the Air Forces would do on their base. I mean, back before anybody knew, no, you don't put engine oil out on the ground, it contaminates. We've learned a lot in the last 75 years or so about the environment. Johnny developed this technique of taking scrap plastic and through a process of paralysis, not paralysis, or maybe it is paralysis. Anyway, whatever it is, it starts with a P. But it converts this plastic, about 42% of the total plastic waste stream, it converts it into a very, very desirable oil that can either go straight to Eastman and be produced into a product, or it can be, it's so clean that it can be approved as a home heating oil, which I wasn't aware till Johnny told me, but home heating has to be a lot cleaner than industrial oil because of the contamination aspects of the home. Or number 3, because it runs less than 2% sulfur content, it actually has become the go-to fuel. Johnny told me that of all the air carbon pollution in the world, this is really a hard statistic to believe, but he was a really smart guy, and I do think he was accurate. 13% of all the world's air pollution comes off the maritime industry. That, to me, that is incredible. But what Johnny told me was that ships have, for the most part, been the junkyard burners of the worst fuel that you could find anywhere in the world. You took it to a shipyard and they burned it as bunker fuel. And in 2025, the National Maritime Association has passed a law that by 2025, they cannot burn fuel, a combined sulfur limit of higher than 6% sulfur. So Johnny's fuel, or New Hope, that fuel is actually sold at a premium because it can be used to dilute higher sulfur content, cheaper oils, and still have the ship lines run fuel is legal. They won't get fined if they get caught, which now I think the maritime is periodically, it goes into a ship and pulls a sample just kind of like the EPA would. That, to me, I just use that as an example of what the recycling industry in this area, in the state, in the nation, in the world, recycling is an emerging industry, because we have, for so many years, we basically wasted and thrown away and covered up, taken, I mean, like this fabulous compost that we make out of these trees. For years, nobody was doing that. They all went to the landfill. We paid for high dollar machines to spread dirt on top of these things and cover them up, when in essence, they could have been going back to the soil, these things being the trees and the brush, they could have been going back to the soil as nature designed everything, and increasing the organic matter in the soil, which anything that grows out of the soil, by reason, it removes something from the soil and puts it into the plant that grows above the level of the soil, or in it like an onion. So what we have done is, for years and years and years, we have just gradually, unknowingly, we've lowered the health level of the soil. And we're at a point now where people are beginning to recognize that fact and say, okay, for us to be healthier, we gotta make our food healthier. And the way we do that is by making the soil healthy. At the new medical school, if any of you have a chance to meet with Dr. Willis, incredibly interesting fellow, but he made the comment to me when he found out we were composting and interested in soil health. He believes that there is a direct correlation between a lot of social abnormalities, and I'm going to just, not one he's used, but I'm going to use it. It's kind of a mass social hysteria that we all seem to be dealing with. That a lot of that actually traces back to the inadequacy of proper nutrition out of our food level. And Dr. Willis said, our goal is going to be to put out 30 to 40 doctors a year who can teach people how to stay well, not how to get over a sickness that they have. And I was kind of like Malcolm Beck, the top of my head blew off when he said that. I thought, holy cow, you know, this is a revolution in thinking. You know, we as a society, I think we tend to give business a bad rap. We give the medical industry a bad rap. We give pharmacy a bad rap. We give profit a bad rap. I mean, we're just looking for scapegoats any and everywhere we can find them. And it just really did my heart good to see that this might be part of a new movement. I hear so many people speak disparagingly of the younger generation. And like last night, I was talking to a guy, and he said, well, when I was growing up, you know, and he's not quite my age, but close, he said 95% of everybody worked. And he said, now I think it's maybe 40 or 50%. I said, well, I think it's higher than that. But on the flip side, out of this younger generation, we're raising some incredibly bright, gifted, passionate about what they do, young people. So I would say, just like we don't get down I mean, we gripe about the price of prescriptions, but they have increased our life. It's some give and some take. I think the same goes true with the soil. It's some give and some take. And for so long, especially since the early 1900s, we've been doing a lot of taking and we've been doing very, very little giving. That's really what composting is all about, is taking a waste product that you would normally have thrown away and putting it to use by putting it back into the earth so that the cycle of life can just go on and on and on. The zenith of plant recycling are leaves. I mean, they're the absolute ultimate. And it breaks my heart to see us take all of our leaves and stick them in plastic bags and take them to the landfill, when they should be feeding plants everywhere. And what I would propose to you is consider supporting a program that we are hoping to present to the city of Tyler sometime this year, whereby people in Tyler will transition from plastic bags for their leaves and grass clippings to a compostable paper bag. Some of the people in a few years back were totally opposed to paper because they were unaware of the lifespan of an outdoor bag. And so they were afraid it would be like it wet, the bottom falls out, you've got a mess on your hands. Actually, tons of towns around the state of Texas are already transitioned into paper bags for leaves and grass clippings. The one thing that we plead for anybody who's going to transition to a compostable bag is please do not put any kind of trash in that, whether it's a styrofoam cup or anything that's not biodegradable readily needs to be kept out and recycled if possible. As not only will compost double the effective rainfall on your area where you put the compost out, but it's been pretty proven that you'll get at an absolute minimum 20 to 30%, in a lot of instances 40 to 50% increase in the yield of a crop grown out of soil after it has had compost applied. I took a humus class which humus is kind of like, if compost is a regular engine, humus charger bolted on. And Bill, that makes sense to you, but okay. When you begin to really study soil and a humus class, you really get into the science, electron microscope. I mean, it's amazing what goes on a microscopic level inside the soil. I literally witnessed myself a hair-like appendage off the root of a plant, and it handed out a little sugar molecule that it had created. And this, I don't remember what it was, but some organism then swapped. It was like Canton, you know, I'll give you a shotgun for those 2 dogs. I mean, that was really what it was. The plant exchanged with the organism, and the plant got what it needed, and the organism got what it needed. That's really impossible to take place when you're dumping commercial fertilizer into your soil, and that's all you do. I'm not meaning to disparage nitrogen and potassium and NPK, but they have to be done the right way. There's a term that I've learned over the years in taking these compost classes, and it's called bioavailability. By way of comparing that, I would say if somebody set a Juicy's hamburger down, I'm gonna be on it pretty quick. If they set a plate of raw ground meat down, I'm gonna take my time before I even take a taste, if I bring that up at all. That's kind of the way it is with fertilizer versus compost. The compost is immediately available to all the little microorganisms that live in the soil for them to start feeding on and feeding and exchanging. I don't remember, Diana, the fungus field that Rhonda Sherman told us about, how one of the biggest living organisms on Earth, and they don't even know how old it is a field of fungus underground that stretches literally thousands of yards, and it's just one big organism. I saw on Facebook a couple of days ago, someone had posted a grove of aspens in Colorado, and they have done DNA testing on these aspens and have discovered, lo and behold, it's just one big plant. It's not a bunch of trees like we thought. It's one big plant that's over 9,000 years old. And they have been living and dying and growing and living and dying all that time. So that just goes to show, and fortunately that whole grove is away from man, so it's not been disturbed. It's been allowed to just do what God intended nature to do, which is to recycle itself and to renew itself. And that's really all that we at Texas Organic want to do, is to just get people to think about recycling and reusing and repurposing instead of open a bag and dump it out or put it in a bag and somewhere else. It's to go back to number 3, if any of you get involved in this, and I'm going to use you as an example because you're obviously deep enough into the field of nutrition, you're nodding at almost everything I'm saying. So that's the goodwill and the shared passion that when you get into recycling, you just can't believe how many neat people there are in it that share the same thing, that share the same passion. It's kind of like Billy and I love cars. You know, we just got 4 wheels. It's pretty neat, and sometimes they can have 3 or 2, and they're still.
Amen, brother.
But it's sort of that same camaraderie that you find when you start talking to people. Diana she's a master gardener. She's secretary treasurer of the Cherokee County Master Gardeners Association, and invited me to talk down there. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago, and I mean, it was the neatest group of people. It's the East Texas Beekeepers Association. And I say that sort of in jest, but more in truth, because it was the first time I went to the beekeepers group. It was kind of like signing on to a wagon train with a bunch of people where you were headed west to California, and everybody was on board, and it just was such a neat atmosphere. That's kind of the way it is amongst us composters and recyclers. We're all on the same quest, which is to make the earth a little bit better than we found it. And you can do that with a garden. You can do that with your lawn. You can do that with your pastures. We just have done a big project for a ranch called Eagle Crest. It's out right actually across the road from Sky Ranch out west of Glendale. And they raise a breed of cattle called Cody, C-O-D-Y. and they're renowned for having extreme tenderness. But the father, who is retiring from running the ranch, his daughter has moved in, and she's very much committed to changing how they raise their cattle and how they grow their grass from artificial fertilizer to composting. So we just took about 5,000 or 6,000 yards out there and finished spreading 2 or 3 months ago. And this is this and another project we're doing through AgriLife, which is it's the A&M extension over in Overton, and this is not as academically supervised as the program over in Overton, but both of them are going to be really well documented as far as the quality of the product that's grown, the protein level. I mean, we're trying to do it scientifically so that you have a lot of data. And we just finished spreading this week at the East Texas Food Bank.
Yes.
I don't know if any of you are aware, but out Highway 155, just south of Loop 49, there's a large garden out there that belongs to the East Texas Food Bank, but it's actually managed and tended to by Sheriff Larry Smith and the people at the Smith County Jail. And the sheriff was telling me, he said, John, to get to go work in the garden, these guys arm wrestle one another. And he said, and the winner gets to go, not the loser. So that kind of gives you an idea. Actually, Dr. Mejia at TJC is really interested in trying to offer an associate's degree in sustainability, because there's really no, other than the forestry school at SFA, there's no school in East Texas that really teaches environmentalism and sustainability. Probably the closest would be down at San Marcos or New Braunfels, where we had the school.
Yes, San Marcos.
Yeah. They have a really good environmental school down there. And then North Texas, surprisingly, has really come up and come on. That town is very much a recycling town. They run a composting operation. They recycle lumber and metal, and I mean, they're really doing an outstanding job. So Dr. Mejia has envisioned that perhaps TJC will start an associate degree in environmentalism or sustainability. And don't know that this would happen, but the came up with Larry Sheriff Smith, and that perhaps these prisoners that have gone out and worked in the fields and have obviously loved it so much, maybe they can teach them classes while they're still incarcerated, and when they would come out, they could have a legitimate profession.
That's awesome.
And it's going to take some community volunteer work to make that happen. But it would be another form of prison ministry that I know, especially my church, Green Acres, is very involved and has been for years in prison ministry. So I can see this as another offshoot. There's a very similar program out of Houston called PEP, the Prison Entrepreneurial Program. And they basically are teaching inmates a trade so that when they come out of prison, they have a way of making a living. That's my 5 minutes. They have a way of making a living. And so Sheriff Smith thinks, well, golly, if they could do that, why couldn't we do this here? And so two things his objective are is to really grow the influence of this sheriff-run garden. And then this year, while he's president of the Texas Sheriff's Association, he's going to also present to as many other sheriffs as he possibly can to consider doing the same thing somewhere else. Let the inmates learn a trade, let them put their labor to good use, and just make things better for everyone. We know that we will more than likely double the output of that garden with having composted it, because it was the poorest sugar sand you've ever seen. It had nothing left in it. Okay, so I'll zip it and question or?
I live in the neighborhood. We have a complicated pond. We have built silt ponds on each end of it to collect the silt to preserve the depth of our main lake.
Right.
Is there a role for silt in compost or your program?
Actually, there is, and most people do not even recognize how important silt is. But silt out of soil is kind of like leaves off a tree. It is the zenith that's there. We had a chance to buy about, I think we got about 75,000 yards, a lot, from some people out south of Troop that were deepening a pond that had been there over 100 years. And I know that because it was on the way to my grandmother's house. So we haul that stuff and we stockpile it. If you have looked at all the grass that's out in front of the Brookshire's Conference Center, we haul about 5,000 or 6,000 yards of topsoil, which if any of you drive down, I'm not going to call any names, but you can drive down certain roads and see a pile of sand and it'll have a tag on it that says topsoil. But it's really not topsoil, it's really sand. Topsoil has very specific ingredients, and one of those is silt, and one of them is organic matter, and one of them are minerals. Different minerals have to be present for the plant to utilize. Silt is a key component of topsoil. We manufactured all of this topsoil, and our formula consisted of 10% silt. So we used silt and sand and compost, and that blended together makes a really, really rich topsoil. So to answer your question, absolutely, if you get a chance to put any of that silt on your yard, do so, because your grass will love it.
Well, we pay contractors to let us dump on their empty lots. Trucks to haul it off.
Yeah, sounds like landfill.
What do you like to see people do with the leaves in the yard? Just leave them where it falls, mow them and grind them up?
Great question. About 3 years ago, we had a deal with the city of Tyler, and we would take a truck of leaves, and that was one of those years where it just like in the space of 30 days, 95% of the leaves in Smith County fell. Yep. They brought us truckloads of leaves and paid us $50. By the time the summer was over, or the fall, we had pretty well figured that it was costing us between $65 and $70 per trailer load to go through and labor and cut the bags and empty the leaves out. So the economics of going to a paper bag for your leaves and your grass clippings is just incredible. We would like to eventually get to a program where we could send trucks around and collect that sort of stuff and then go straight in to a compost pile with it. But we're not there yet. There are several companies that we've spoken with that are interested in actually participating in the paper bag program, and for an amount that they would contribute, they get some advertising. One of them is Delic, one is Brookshire's Grocery. They would advertise, and then the city would give these paper bags away for free instead of you having to buy plastic bags. They think that would jumpstart the transition from plastic bags to paper bags. But economically, it would just, I mean, you could basically do it for free or close to it. I mean, I realize nothing's free, but
It's amazing.
good question.
Would you willing to stay after in case somebody has any more questions? Because I know it sounds like we've got this very interesting topic, and I know I want to learn more, but would you be willing to do
Sure,
that?
Diana, as I say, she's got some fold-out materials and business cards
And
and.
tell everyone your website and all that, please. So
Sorry?
Tell them your website, where to go check it all out.
Yes, it's got the website,
Okay,
phone numbers,
good.
and, it's, I told my dad one time, when something I was doing at the plant was really difficult, I said, this is so hard. If I'd known how difficult it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have. And he said, well, uttered a profanity. He said, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. That's the good thing about recycling and composting is it's really pretty easy to do. You just have to sort of get the desire internalized. And once that happens, you just find it easy. And it's one of those things that just makes sense. It's beneficial to all concerned. The animals that eat the plants that grow out of the ground. Case in point, the last compost conference that we went to, there were 3 different speakers who spoke about the fact that when you feed compost to a pasture, the plant becomes more chemically complex. And a pest, like an armyworm, was the example that all 3 men used. An armyworm has a very simplistic digestive system. So they have documented both in visual and film armyworms eating a pasture of fertilized grass, coming to a composted pasture and skipping it because it was too hard to work for them to eat it and digest it and move on to another fertilized pasture. Now some of you in here I know have seen what a bunch of armyworms can do in a week's time. They can just destroy your pasture. So just imagine the economic benefit of that. And speaking of the economic benefit, 2 or 3 years ago, I talked to Dr. Perryman about this, about the increased yield, the decreased pest destruction, all the things that getting back to taking better care of the soil would benefit us. And he said, the way to make this happen is to quantify, to put it into dollars and cents. And he said, sometime come to Waco and let's sit down and talk about this. So one of these days, we'll have something to pass out to you that will say, if you compost your pasture, you're going to get this much more hay at this price. We should have that by the end of next fall, through the project that AgriLife is running on Dr. Philly's property out between Overton and Tyler. But anyway, I'll close. It really is an honor for us, and I say this because we're kind of a tight team and we all preach the same sermon over and over. It really is an honor to get to come and to talk to you about something that we're also passionate about and that we feel is really the right thing, both globally and locally. It's the right thing to do. And it's also just what God instructed us to do, is take care of what he's given us. And that's really all that composting is and recycling is. It's just being good stewards of what we've been given. So thank you all very much.
Okay, wait, you have something I want to give to you, you just have to come back. Okay, Thank you so much for that presentation, because I know I didn't know much about that at all, and I was just like, oh my gosh. But we have made a contribution to the Literacy Council of Tyler on your behalf for coming and presenting that, and if you wouldn't mind, I know there's people that may have some more questions for you a little bit afterward, and all of that's super interesting to me as well, because my husband has a hay business on the side, and you said army worm, and we don't talk about that in my house. So I can,
Sometimes you can spray 3 times a year for armyworms.
yes, you can, and I can promise you, I really wish that he could have been here to hear what all you had to say, because he would have been one of those people to stay afterwards, so I'm gonna need one of those little books. Okay, you also have to do us another honor. Now's time for the Ace of Diamonds, so you get to pick a ticket out of there. Everybody have your tickets ready. For those of you who are visiting with us, Ace of Diamonds, he'll call out the last 4 digits, and if you win, you get to come up here and try to pick the Ace of Diamonds out of those cards to win half of what is in the pot.
Which is $453.
Which is $453. So if you're a Rotarian of this club, you get half that. If you're a yes, you only get a fourth of that. So what's the numbers?
0113.
0113.
Bill gets to pick his stuff.
Wait. Okay, so I decided, I made the executive decision because I can do that whoever got the ticket, tickets were drawn, we did get 2 tickets to the Art of Chocolate, which is the children's, the Champions for Children's fundraiser. We did make a contribution to them, and they gave us 2 tickets to Art of Chocolate. So you get 2 tickets. You get to win something. You're not guaranteed to win Ace of Diamonds unless you draw the right card.
Come on, Bill. Nope, hearts.
Oh, that's not, okay, so it's a heart. 4 hearts. Okay, if everyone will please stand, we are going to recite the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third,
Build goodwill and better friendships?
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We are adjourned. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.